Listen Up is back with its look at Canada's involvement in human trafficking, the buying and selling of people for sale. Prostitution is the primary use of that. As we reported earlier in the program, not all agree that prostitutes should be described as victims of human trafficking. But the line between choice and victim is fraught with criminal activity aimed at the vulnerable. Our next guest was under the age of 14 when she was recruited into prostitution. For 15 years, she lived in a world that gave her no choice when it came to selling sex. Here is her story of discovering a break for freedom.
So I think my life started out fairly chaotic from the beginning.
The chaos peaked when Trish was a preteen. Her parents divorced after one particularly violent fight.
And I don't blame them. I mean, they just were where they were and trying to do the best that they could. But I had no skills to deal with what I had seen. And when they split, I kind of exploded and starting out acting out behaviorally.
She was removed from her family home. Searching for love and stability, she thought she found it in the arms of a 35-year-old man.
You know, he really likes me. He's really great. And aren't I so cool because I'm 13 years old and he wants to hang out with me.
She would quickly learn security came at a price.
If I didn't sleep with him, I wouldn't have gotten food to eat. I wouldn't have been allowed to stay there. I wouldn't have been, quote unquote, safe. I wouldn't have had the alcohol to drink. I wouldn't have had the drugs to do. You have to understand, like 90% of women, what you would call our pimp, are our boyfriends. Like, it's only afterwards that you realize, oh, he didn't actually love me. He was my pimp. Like one of the men I worked for, you know, he was always so sad every time I had to do it. I'm really sorry it's come to this again, but could you blank?
Trish did the unspeakable for 15 years, first as one man's prostitute, then as a professional escort. Did you feel you had control of your life?
Considering the only other option was starving or death, I would have to say yeah. And control is a relative thing, right? I had a date, and I thought he was going for his wallet, and he grabbed a crowbar and smashed me across the chest, and I don't remember much after that. So any situation after that where that didn't happen again, yeah, I was in control.
Trisha, how did this end for you?
It was late October in 2000, and I was on my corner about 12 blocks away from here, and there was a girl named Amanda Gletto.
Amanda was a student at a nearby Christian university.
And they do outreach around here all the time, right? Like giving out hot chocolate and sandwiches and all that kind of stuff. And usually I avoided them. They want to pray for you and stuff, and wow.
But the night was cold.
So she stopped and she gave me a hot chocolate. And she conveyed to me, she was the first person in a long time that seemed they were actually glad I was here. I mean, we, as a former prostitute, like, society hates us. Like, we know we're disposable. We know we mean nothing. I mean, high school teenagers come by and throw pennies at us for a Friday night fun, right? In a smile, she conveyed Jesus' love. Like, in that moment, she was Jesus.
Over time, Amanda arranged for a group to financially chip in to pay Trisha's bills, then asked her, "Are you willing to leave the streets?"
But I sat with that question for 2 weeks, and I looked at my kids, and suddenly it wasn't about me. This was my chance, and I was not going to screw it up.
To say thank you, Trish decided to cross an uncomfortable divide.
And I really honestly started going to church out of guilt, right? Like, because I knew it was the faith-based community that were helping me pay my bills, and fine, I'll go. And so every Sunday, I would just sit there and I would poke holes in the sermon with her afterwards, right? And I was having a smoke, and it was an epiphany. It was that moment, and it was like, he died for me. He died for me. And I had always thought that if there was a God, he wouldn't have let everything that happened to me happen. But what I had to see was, God didn't let it happen, but he stood right beside me through it all. God had been weeping right alongside of me. God wept for me. His son died for me, and he wept for me. And it was in that moment that it was just like, I've never looked back. How can you? God wept.
Trisha started going to a small, home-based Bible study.
Except really it wasn't a cell group, it was all about Trisha group, right? Like, I just came every week and we talked all about me and my week and what was going wrong and how do I do everything different. It's not that life changed in one day. It was that the time between screw-ups got longer and longer. And it's like now, through the grace of God and with God's wisdom, I'm a different person.
When Listen Up returns, we conclude with what you can do about human trafficking, those details in The Wrap.